Hey guys, welcome back to another Viper Bet Strategies testing video. Today we're going to do a run back of the one I just recently posted. That's Checkmate 8. I made a couple modifications to this one for a couple of reasons. I think, well, first off, I did make a blooper on that one, so I do want to identify that. I'm going to make an adjustment on the split color. So this is a color split strategy. I'll get into that in just a minute. I'm going to really focus today on, I think it's a solid base of a strategy. The bet placements aren't crazy. They pretty much stay the same throughout the progression. So what I'm going to focus on is the progressions themselves. So I'm going to run a couple different variations of Fibonacci, Martingale, and then I have one that I prefer to use and I think works out best personally through some testing that I've done, and that's the prime sequence ladder. And I like to use that for all my 50-50 type of bets. So we'll get into that as well. I just want to recap. So that test I originally ran, it did not do very well with the Martingale. Okay. So I stopped mid test. I did another Martingale run. It busted. So I ended up switching it to a regular Fibonacci sequence, and it ended up making $1,421 in profit. And then I hit a low of minus $537. That came out to because I ran it against 500 spins. The profit per spin was $2.84. That's going to be a new stat I'm going to start to accumulate and track for you guys. So what I'm going to do is each of these tests will be ran against the same data set, meaning it's going to tell me which progression is going to work out the best. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to go off the profit high within that 100 spin, and then I'm going to break it down per spin, how much it's averaging. Okay, so there's going to be 5 separate tests today. And the first one, let's go ahead and jump into it, and I'll show you the setup. All right, so of course, Checkmate 8. This is what I'm changing right here. So it's going to be, so this one is going to be regular Fibonacci, right? And I'm switching it from a negative progression to a ladder progression. And so I'm going to go ahead and add these over here so we could, so I got the start level, steps up, steps down, and the restart level. These are all adjustable. I'm going to keep it base for this test run. So ladder start level 1, and then steps up. That means it's going to go 2 steps up in the progression on a loss. So you can see right here, I added all color splits. Okay. So that's the key difference. Not only did I add that one that I missed previously, I just added all of them. That's going to give you 9 split bets, and the total is going to be at 18 number coverage. So let's go ahead and start the test and see how this runs. Of course, just to speed up the videos a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and speed up this process, and then we will recap all these tests at the end of the video. So of course, got it all set up. We're using dollar units. So let's see how this one runs, and we'll catch up with you at the end of the video. Okay, so that's going to wrap up test number 1. Very good results. Again, a little aggressive, meaning it was going up 2 levels on losses. So I'm going to try to dial that back a little bit. I'm going to do, let's go ahead and just get the setup going first. And then I'm going to try to extend this a little bit. We're going to go from that ladder. We're going to keep it at a negative progression. What we're really changing right here is we're extending this. As you can see, it goes 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 5, 5, 8, 8, etc. I'm calling this double Fibonacci. All you're really doing is just adding an extra step for each of the levels. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this going, set up. And let's see how this rolls without the ladder. Again, if we played with the ladder, it would probably make this a little bit less volatile, but I just wanted to see a good test run with it on a regular negative progression, and then we could go from here. Okay, so this kind of what makes that the using the software powerful, because you could just simply cycle through a bunch of different progressions and see what works and kind of fine tune it to how you like to play, right? Because you might like to play aggressive, get up, get out real quick with a lot of money in your pocket, and you don't mind risking your entire bankroll. I understand that. I get that. That's fun too. Some people do not like any risk in their strategy play, so they want to reduce that. This software, this tool definitely helps you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video from here on out, and this will be test number 2, and then we'll catch up for the next test. Okay, so that wraps up test number 2. Of course, not as much profit because I dialed it back a little bit, make it a little bit safer. I do like to show different variations of these because, some people play different ways, right? So when people always ask me, hey, what's the best strategy? Well, that really depends on you because that term's very subjective, meaning the best for me might be super low volatility. I win more consistent. Best for you might be, hey, I want to leave with $1,000 in my pocket. And to be quite honest, I think that's a little, it's reaching, right? How often does that happen versus reality, right? So that's why I lean on the safer side. I like consistency, small wins, consistent over time is how I build my bankroll. That being said, we're going to jump into test number 3. We are going to revert back to a martingale strategy. So let's go ahead and set this up and we will start the test. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to dial the progression back a little bit for the ladder steps up. I'm just going to keep it at 1. So the ladder is going to go up 1 and then down 1. Okay. I am going to keep the original martingale in there. Okay. So I just want to see how it pans out, just implementing the ladder. Maybe that's going to help it out. Because it did make profit previously, but it busted. So let's see how this test run goes, and I'll speed up the video again and we will catch up with you for the next test. Okay, so we are on to test number 4. I'm going to do it one more time with the martingale. I'm going to change it a little bit. So let's go ahead and get things situated. I'm going to keep this ladder in here, going up 1, going down 1. All I'm changing right here is the progression, still martingale based, but I'm doing a double martingale. So it's going to go 1, 1, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8, 8, etc. I want to see if that's going to reduce the volatility. It should. So, of course, that's why we test before we invest. So let's go ahead and give this a run, set everything up. All right, guys. So we are on test number 5. Last but definitely not least, I think this one's going to pan out good. I've been playing around with this. I typically like to use this strategy, this sequence in my strategies for 50-50 type of bets. Okay. I have played around with some split betting and some column and dozen stuff with it too that panned out well. But, anyways, this is all about 50-50 bets today. So let's see how this one pans out. Let's go ahead and set everything up. So again, I'm going to use the ladder progression with this simple going up, going down, and here's a prime sequence right there. So let's go ahead and add that in, save this. Let's see how this one pans out. And then of course, we will go over all the stats here at the end of this test run. This is so each of these, again, 100 spins each, total of 500 spins. We're going to crunch the numbers and we're going to figure out which one's the best. And I might like one over what you might like, but of course, that's why we run these tests. We're going to figure that out. Okay. So we're going to catch up at the end of this test run and we will go over all of the stats. All right, guys. So that's going to wrap up the test. That was 5 tests, 100 spins each. Again, remember, I was using the same data set across all of these tests, meaning it's the same 100 spins against all 5 tests. The reason why is I want to find out if changing the progression is going to make any difference. And if it makes difference, what progression works out the best for you is what we're trying to figure out. Before we jump into the stats, I'm going to go over them in just a second. I do want to highlight something first. So as you see right here, I have the European roulette on the left and American roulette on the right. Lately, I've been really focusing on the layout of the bets in correlation of the actual wheel. Now, today's data set was used with the European single zero spins. That was that spin data. Okay, I can run this with American roulette spin data as well. So if you're interested in that, let me know down in the comments. I could do a run with that as well. But I wanted to pull this up and show you for comparison. So looking at the European wheel on the left, it looks like the bets are fairly spread out. Now, there's 2 schools of thought on this. A lot of people say, well, more spread out bets, you have a better chance of hitting. On the contrary, the other side, this is where I think is better, is grouping tighter, making these zones. So you're essentially making bigger holes for that ball to land in. Okay. So I tend to lean on the other side where I want to group them tighter. So depending on what you have available to play on, this is just the layout. I just wanted to show you guys this. So looking at European wheel, fairly even. But then going over to the American roulette wheel, you see that there's 2 large zones and they're not completely tight. There's a couple gaps. So if you look at the top right, you'll see there's a 25 and 6 and 33. So it's not a completely tight zone, but it's fairly grouped together. And then you got a couple empty gaps adjacent to those as well. So I just want to show you guys that, and let's go over the results. So again, this was a modification of Checkmate 8. The original version called for 4 black splits and 4 red splits. Okay, so I changed it, made a couple adjustments, but I decided why not go with all of the color split bets. That pushed us to an 18 number coverage covering 9 split bets. Okay, so test number 1. What do we do with test number 1? We simply used a Fibonacci sequence with a ladder progression. That one performed the best by far, but that was also because that was by far the most aggressive progression we ran with this strategy. Okay, remember those parameters. On a loss, we would go up 2, right? So essentially on a loss from that $1 bet, it would skip $2 and it would go to $3. Okay, and then if it lost again, it would skip over that 5 and it would go straight to an $8 bet per split. So that's why we ended up with $1,361 in 100 spins. That boils down to $13.61 per spin. So if you like aggressive play, again, remember this was a small sample size of 100 spins. Play around with that progression. You might like it. Also, on to our next test. Double Fibble. All I did was that. You remember, I just went 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, and so on. We wanted to dial it back a little bit. Didn't make as much profit. It ended up with $387 in profit. That boils down to $3.87 per spin. So very good results. Again, when you're looking at that test, it really didn't have some big swings. That first test will, the bets will increase. And the bets will get high quick if you're playing that style. So keep that in mind. Then we switched over to Martingale, but not in a traditional sense. What we did is we did the Martingale ladder. We kept it basic Martingale with, I believe there was, what was it, 10 levels? I forget. I would have to go back and look. But we kept the Martingale the same. All we adjusted is the ladder, right? We're just going up 1, down 1, doing it the D. Allenbert style. We ended up, that one was the only one that, quote unquote, ended in a minus. I think it ended around minus 90, but you could see it was climbing back up. But on that one, we did peak out at a total high at $405 profit. That boils down to $4.05 per spin. Not too bad with that one. So again, that ladder, even though it's an aggressive way to bet, you can reduce its volatility by using a D. Allenbert going up and down with a ladder progression. So we switched over, kept Martingale. So test number 4, 100 spins. We did the double Martingale. All that means is I just stretched it out. So just 1, 1, 2, 2, like I said earlier, and made less money, but it was less volatile. It didn't dip down as aggressively as the previous one. Okay, so we ended up with a profit high of $288. That boils down to $2.88 per spin. And last but definitely not least, prime sequence. I feel panned out the best. We've barely touched and used any bankroll. Again, this is what I like to use. This is what I prefer as of lately until another progression proves me wrong, right? I'm constantly testing. And I like this for 50-50 bets, guys. It does okay when you have like 20 to 24 numbers. Any more coverage like that doesn't have that recovery power. But that 100 spin test ended up with $432 in a session high. So that boils down to $4.32 per spin. Very good results. None of these busted. None of them really got in too much trouble. The only one that suffered a little bit, had a slight setback, was that Martingale ladder test number. What was that? Test number 3, if I remember correctly. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. This is why we test. This is an amazing tool. And also, it's a big time saver, right? I mean, before this was created, I had countless hours testing with that app. Didn't simulate correctly. I know a lot of you guys have your own personal opinions. Sometimes people say, hey man, you could only win with this. And then there's other people on the opposite side that say, hey man, like everything I test, it goes against it. That's good to get an idea and get comfortable with the strategy. But if you want to run it against real spin data that you collect from the casino, and you want to save some time and you want to focus on the meat and taters, what's the meat and taters about testing these strategies? It's not just testing it in its original form. If you like to tinker with these things and you really like to figure problems out, this tool was amazing, right? Because we could just blast through the testing. All we need is the results. Figure out that progression sucked. That one didn't work. How can I refine it? So you can see the base way this original strategy, this checkmate 8 was set up, it was too aggressive on that progression. Yeah, on the Roulette Masters channel, he ended up checking out with a lot of money, but that's a small sample size. And then I ran the test 2 times with it in its original version, and you've seen what happened. First one made money, second one busted, and it's just not going to run long term. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think in the comments below as usual. And of course, guys, till next time, be cool, stay cool. Peace.